You know, I know that if the late, great Paul Williams had been here, I wouldn't be up here, but I just want to thank him for showing me my way when he was in the group. He gave me all the inspiration I needed.
We've introduced ourselves to you musically, and now we would like to introduce ourselves to you personally. I'm Paul Williams.
The story of today is about a fantastic vocalist who taught Motown's most famous group on how to dance and dress. The best dancer in the whole group, yet he received the least appreciation. Today's story focuses on the most overlooked member of the Temptations, Mr. Paul Williams. Before we get started in today's video, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push that notification bell to stay up to date. Now, without further ado, let's cue that intro. Paul Williams was born July 2nd, 1939 in Inslee, Alabama. Williams' parents, Sophia and Rufus Williams, was gospel singers in a group that was known as the Inslee Jubilee Singers. Williams, he had an older brother named Charles. Now, like many vocalists, Williams, he grew up in a church-going household, and as a result, he always had a passion for music. Williams, he would meet his best friend Eddie Kendricks in elementary school. Now, supposedly the two had ran into each other after a confrontation that started with Williams allegedly dumped a bucket of mop water on Kendricks. After the two had discovered that they had a passion for music, they would grow quite close. Because they were singing the same choir, their bond was strengthened, and as teenagers, they would develop an interest in secular music. By 1955, they was joined by two other friends, Kels Osborne and Riley Waller, to form the Cavaliers. The group, they had very high ambitions of succeeding in the music industry. They would begin singing on street corners, bars, and talent shows like many groups do in their earlier time.
As teenagers, Eddie, Paul, and a couple of buddies formed a doo-wop group called the Cavaliers and began performing around Birmingham.
After 2 years, the group, they would intend to relocate out the South before 3 of the 4 members recognized that they wouldn't get anywhere if they stayed in their hometown. Waller, he would refuse to leave, so the group, they would drop him and work as a trio. Now the trio, they would change their names to the Primes and relocate to the Midwest in Cleveland, Ohio. They would work at the Majestic Hotel on 55th and Central while in Cleveland. Now, I'm not sure what Osborne did when they was there, but I do know Kendrick, he had worked as a dishwasher, and Williams, he worked as a bellhop. When the group had a chance to play in the hotel's Rose Room alongside dancer and contortionist Claudina Young, they would meet music manager Milton Jenkins. Now, under Jenkins, the group, they would relocate to Detroit, Michigan, where at this time, the city began to establish a reputation in the music industry with artists coming out of the city such as Jackie Wilson, The Miracles, and Marv Johnson, to mention a few. The Primes were the most well-liked unsigned group that came out of Detroit, despite the fact that they never released any original material. As I mentioned in the last video, it was fairly common for groups to have a sister group. So Jenkins, he would form the Primettes, which was a sister group of the Primes, who would later become the Supremes.
Within a few years, they had made their way to Detroit, where they changed their name to the Primes.
And their manager decided that he wanted to find some girls and they'd have an opening act, and this was the way of marketing the Primes.
Those girls were named the Primettes, better known later as the Supremes.
Williams was dating Primettes member Betty McGlone at the time, and Osborne would leave the group to move to Hollywood to pursue a solo career in 1960, what ultimately broke up the group. Williams, he would remain in Detroit while Kendricks would relocate back to Alabama. Kendricks, he would frequently pay visits to his best friend, and on one of those visits, Kendricks would make a phone call to the distance leader, Otis Williams. And after that phone call, the rest became history. The original Temptations was Eddie, who gave off a high falsetto vocals, Al, who provided vocals, Otis, who provided the baritone, Blue, who provided the bass, and Paul, who contributed the vocals as well as the group choreography and flair. The group's first couple of years at Motown was challenging, and Paul and Kendricks would share lead vocals. Now, when David Ruffin originally joined the group, he was in the rear until Smokey Robinson heard his voice, which inspired him to write the group's first hit with Ruffin as lead. After this, Paul, he became furious because David and Eddie took up the primary roles of lead singer. Williams, he told the group saying, "Shit, I can sing too." And as a result, he was awarded the lead vocalist on the group's following single, Don't Look Back.
If it's love that you're running from, there's no high.
Williams also sang lead on many singles such as Your Wonderful Love,
Wonderful love, wonderful love.
Slow Down Heart, I Want a Love I Can See,
I want a love I can see. That's the only kind of.
Oh Mother of Mine,
Oh, mother of mine.
Farewell My Love,
But I've got to set you free.
Hey Girl,
Hey girl, I want you to know.
No More Water in the Well,
No more water in the well. No more.
and Just Another Lonely Night, just to mention a few.
Foolishly I made you cry.
Paul and Otis was the only members of the Temptations that was married and had children during this time. Now Williams, he ultimately had an affair with Winnie Brown, who was married and a hairdresser for the Supremes, also the cousin of Florence Ballard. Now Williams, he would find himself in a really difficult situation since he was in love with his mistress and also wanted to maintain his family. With all that accumulating and the road life growing, demanding, Paul, he was carrying some physical discomfort that he concealed to himself. Now most people didn't realize at the time, but Paul, he had sickle cells, which caused him agony and negativity impacted his physical condition. Charlie Atkins was an in-house choreographer for all Motown performers around this time thanks to his success with the Miracles. So, Paul, he felt he was being pushed back. First, not only being used as much with the group, but now having his job taken away from him, it drove Paul into a deep depression as he resorted into drinking alcohol to cope. While it's true that most people assume that he drank alcohol as a result of his sickle cell, the stress that he experienced during the time also played a huge role. The group members found this to be quite concerning because they knew Paul didn't drink. Instead, his preferred beverage was always milk. To witness a man go from drinking milk to drinking sometimes 2 to 3/5 a Cavassier a day was kind of hard to take, Otis had said while describing seeing Paul drink excessively. Don't get me wrong, the group, they did all they could when they seen things was getting out of hand, including raiding his room and throwing away his alcohol stashes, organizing interventions, and putting the oxygen tank backstage so he can use to assist him to breathe if necessary. Williams, he would form a business partnership with his lover in the spring of 1969 called the Celebrity House West, which was a celebrity fashion store that was located in downtown Detroit. Now Williams, he would find himself owing more than $80,000 in taxes due to the company failure, which is more than $500,000 in today's money. Williams, his health began to decline to the point that he couldn't perform. Now, when Paul, who was the best of the group when it comes to foot movement, started to stumble, the group, they would turn into some trusted assistants in Richard Street, who would sing Paul's lines from the sideline. Williams' voice had become damaged as a result of his respiratory condition and alcoholism, and he finally decided to consult a doctor after years of resistance. Williams' doctor detected a spot on his liver in April of 1971 and suggested him to retire from music entirely. Despite hearing this, the group would nevertheless show Williams' devotion by keeping him as the group's choreographer and advisor and paying him his share of the group's royalties. Williams would attempt to try a solo career with his debut solo hit, Feel Like Giving Up, which was also co-written by Eddie Kendricks.
When I'm all alone, baby, and you
Other songs by Williams would include Once You Had a Heart,
to see the tears I cried, and this loneliness, my
and I Need You Now More Than Ever.
You're the sun that shines when clouds are in the way.
Now these singles was not released until after Williams' death. Now personally, after hearing these singles, I truly believe if everything would have worked out right, Paul, he would have had a great solo career. Williams, who was 34 years old, was discovered dead on August 17th, 1973 in a parked car in the alley after leaving the home of his mistress following an altercation. Paul, he was discovered shot on the left side of his head while still in his underwear. His death was ruled to be a suicide. Now, according to Otis, Paul expressed suicidal thoughts to him in Blue months before his death. Nevertheless, the Williams family didn't accept this at all. According to the coroners, Williams, he was left-handed and he was shot on the left side of his head. Now, here's the twist. A pistol was found and was located on his right side, and the alcohol bottle was recovered on his left side as if he dropped it once when he was shot. 2 rounds was also fired from the pistol, but only 1 was found. Now I got a question for you guys, and let me know in the comment section below. What are you guys' thoughts about the circumstances surrounding Paul's death? Paul, he will leave behind his wife, Mary Williams, and 8 children, 5 of whom he had with his wife, and 3 he had with 3 other women. Paul Williams was a Temptations secret sauce with his husky and smoky voice that was a component of these amazing tunes. Williams established the group's approach by teaching them all of the dance moves that we had seen them do in the early 60s. Paul, he is truly a legend that needs more credibility.